Hello, folks. It's Mr. Albonetti here to talk to you about transition sentences. Someone asked me to teach a little mini lesson on that. So here goes. I have research essay example number one. I got this from yesterday's lesson. I posted two examples. A student asked me to post them, so I post them, right? Anyways, so I have this essay written by an English 12 student last year, I believe. Yep. Yeah, April 12th, 2019. And let's see what he does. My main suggestion regarding transition sentences is to make them complete sentences. That's my main suggestion. So let's watch what this student does. He wrote about North Korea. We don't need to read all of the essay. He has an introduction, he has his thesis statement, and then he has the first section. The first section is all background information, so we're going to skip it. We're going to go down to the bottom of page 3. So he writes this section on food distribution and how the authoritarian government in North Korea uses food, withholds food to control its citizens. So I'm going to read through the first few paragraphs, and we're going to look at how this English 12 student creates entire sentences that are like transition sentences to essentially stitch his essay together. One of the key characteristics of North Korea throughout the past 3 decades has been the country's constant struggle to adequately feed its populace. According to UNICEF, 80,000 children are likely to die from hunger, and signs of malnourishment can be found in nearly a million more. Although the North Korean government blames the famines on events such as natural disasters, defectors argue that much of the hunger in the country can be attributed to the DPRK's policy of prioritizing food to the military and party officials. According to refugee accounts, millions of North Koreans, especially those who belong to the politically disfavored households, do not receive enough food necessary for survival. This issue is especially apparent in North Korean prisons. During the time that An Myung-chol held his position as prison guard, he observed thousands of prisoners who resembled walking skeletons, dwarves, and cripples, often dying from starvation before the conclusion of their sentencing. These accounts suggest that the North Korean people are completely dependent on their government for survival and regularly deteriorate due to the DPRK's policy of unequal food distribution. So the student gives us you could almost think of it as his A paragraph if we had an ACE structure going on. It's almost like the assert. It's just a bunch of background information about food distribution and food being withheld in North Korea. Then the student's going to bring in an academic idea, this one from a guy named Eric Fromm, and he's going to use this academic idea as almost like a lens to help understand what North Korea is doing to its people. So he just wrote a paragraph, the student wrote a paragraph about food distribution, and now look at this first sentence. Researcher Eric Fromm investigated the connection between dependency and obedience in his journal, Disobedience is a Psychological and Moral Problem. So he has the new idea, researcher Eric Fromm, but then we have the connecting idea, dependency and obedience, and then we have the article. Well, this idea of dependency and obedience came from right here, the last sentence of the previous paragraph. So this one word, dependent and dependency, connects the main ideas from the two paragraphs. And by adding this one transition sentence, now the student can tell us more about Eric Fromm's idea. So let's read this paragraph. Researcher Eric Fromm investigated a connection between dependency and obedience in his journal, Disobedience is a Psychological and Moral Problem. In the journal, he explored the role that disobedience has had on human history. Throughout his research, he compared the role of an authoritative body to that of a parent. According to Fromm, one can only become disobedient when they emerge from the mother's lap and father's commands and gain the ability to think independently. He also found that when one enters a state of dependency, they will exchange their independence for security and comfort. When one submits to authority, that individual feels safe and protected from the hazards of the outside world. Through his research, Fromm concluded that dependency, security, and obedience are connected together. When one becomes dependent on authority for survival, they will likely submit to that higher authority. So you see the students setting up the rest of his body section by making the connection between dependence and authority and survival. So you see where this is going in the next paragraph. Submission then results in obedience, comfort, and loyalty towards that authoritative source. Through this process, a parental state is created as the relationship between government and civilian transforms into that of a parent and child. In order to survive, the child must follow the parent as they lack the ability to rebel and live independently. When one becomes dependent on another source for survival, they lose their individuality and therefore their ability to assert their independence through dissent and rebellion. Now let's look at the transition sentence that begins the next paragraph and connects this paragraph up here to the one below. The North Korean government regularly demonstrates Fromm's connection between dependency and obedience through the use of their discriminatory food distribution policies. So he refers back to the original topic, North Korea, their government, and then he refers back to Fromm, the guy from the previous paragraph, and then Fromm's connection between dependency and obedience. So we saw the first paragraph end with the word dependent. The second paragraph begin with dependency and obedience. And the third paragraph begin with this main idea, like the main idea of this section. Which section is this? Section 2, food distribution. Main idea is the connection between dependency and obedience. And our student refers back to North Korea's discriminatory food distribution policies. In other words, the fact that they withhold food, the government withholds food from its populace. And then in this last paragraph, the student, which you can read on your own, the student analyzes what North Korea is doing using Fromm's idea. Fromm's idea of the parent state can also be found in North Korea. The DPRK represents the parent, the civilian represents the child. So the student in this paragraph is giving us the the E, so to speak, the explain. He's using Fromm's idea to explain North Korea's behavior. And you can see the same kind of transition sentences in other paragraphs. So he begins with, this simple transition sentence into a new section. Another hallmark of North Korean society is its penal system. And in this sentence, he ends the paragraph by saying, through the use of such policies, each convict becomes exposed to a culture of systemic terror and violence while detained inside the camps. So this section talks about the treatment of like prisoners and the inhumane punishment they receive. And then boom, the very next sentence of the next paragraph connects a researcher, a guy named Philip Zimbardo, to the psychological effects of prison or prison culture. So you need a transition sentence to move the reader from paragraph to paragraph and guide the reader through your argument. Hopefully these sentences help you, these examples help you. There's another research essay here. I think we're looking at number one or two. We're looking at number 1, and research essay exemplar number 2 has some useful transition sentences as well. If you have any suggestions for other topics that I can discuss in future mini lessons, please let me know. And I hope y'all stay healthy out there. Bye.